that this animal was being eaten at, which is fucking odd cause it's pussed up and rotten. I start getting all weak, which happens when I think about anatomy. The wall in this room has collapsed and someone could easily climb the rubble down to the street, so we know that if anything was up here it's gone. We go downstairs and tell Steve and Greg what we found. After everyone goes back up to look at the wolf, we head outside and look for shelter. We wander around alert as shit looking for somewhere to spend the night. Eventually we see this garage thing with a usable windowless door. It's totally empty except for a shitty old chair. We set up our shit for the night and start planning what to do. We set up a 2-man watch team and go to bed while there's still light. Me and Andrew are on watch and we start talking about random shit. Suddenly I have to shit. We've been eating baked beans and jerky the whole week, so I know I can't shit inside or it'll stink up the place. Me and Andrew go outside and I shit next to the door while he stands watch. I'm about finished when he calmly tells me to hurry the fuck up before it comes over here. I say, dude, what the fuck, don't be an asshole right now, and he goes, there's a guy standing out there watching us, I'm not fucking around. I finish up and Lou, and sure enough there's a guy out there, but there's also a second guy standing too. We go in and keep on watching. Eventually our watch is up, so we wake up the others and tell them about how 2 demons watched me shit out. In the morning we eat our food and check the guns and equipment, Geiger counters and a bong. We go out the garage door rather than the side door. Greg and Steve tells us that after we went to sleep there was scuffling noises near the side door, so we go around to check. My shit is gone. I'm revolted as fuck, so is everyone else. The demon ate my shit, literally. We head back up the road, planning to get the fuck out of Chernobyl. After 2 hours of walking we notice something trailing us a long way away. It's walking behind us in the woods, no shirt but weird messed up pants. If we had a rifle I would have gunned it down right there. We just keep walking, checking on it every now and then. It gets closer every 45 minutes or so, and we're getting tired. Every time we break for a rest, it just stands there watching. As it starts getting late, we look for shelter again. This time we find an old building that kind of resembled a gas station. We go in, lock up the door, and use the same watch system as the night before. This building has windows though, and we can see them standing outside watching, closer than they stood to the garage last night. In the morning we head out and they're gone again. An hour into our trek we catch sight of our follower. It's not walking though. About a mile behind us, it starts a squaddle sprinting towards where we are, jerking around and letting out this faint wail. I'm scared for about half a second, but then I remember my skin color and it fades instantly. We stand and wait, guns ready. During the time it takes for the demon to close the distance, we all conclude that this is some kind of trap, or that the creatures are testing us. We decide to advance towards the thing. We walk forward in a horizontal line, guns forward, ready to fuck this thing up. I never thought it would actually come within range. I figured it would ever off to the side or stop at some point, but when it gave us the chance, I didn't hesitate a moment. We fired in unison, and let me tell you, it was past overkill. The creature lost an entire arm, and its chest was a mangled mess. Before we fired, me, Steve and Andrew all screamed "Hail Victory," which seems a little gay now, but at the time I felt like the biggest badass this world has ever seen. After we finished it we just stood there looking at its corpse. Its skin was pale, with a yellow-green tinge, and its insides were black and reeked of rot. We stood there looking, and Greg just says that was fucking intense. I start laughing and I'm like, yeah, and we all turn around to start walking again, but we stop dead. Everywhere in front of us, and as far as I could see down the road, they stood there watching. It was like time froze. We started running away backwards, and they just stood there watching. After we ran so far that we couldn't see them anymore, we slowed down and started freaking out because now we couldn't take the road out. They had reaped us. We argued for a while until Steve said he heard a car. There was nowhere to hide, so we just stood next to the road, guns hidden, and we waited. The car turned out to be Ukrainian law enforcement. One had heard the shots and were coming to investigate. Apparently we had been just a short while away from the last checkpoint into Chernobyl. One of the officers looked dead into my eyes and says in Russian, "Any trouble?" I can tell he knew we were in trouble, and I could tell that he knew exactly what kind of trouble. We asked them for a ride back, and they kindly obliged. As we passed the spot where we shot the creature, there was no sign of any body, or even black blood. It's worth mentioning that these officers are strapped with AKs and even grenades. I'm like quietly shitting myself because I realized that if these guys hadn't picked us up, we wouldn't have made it. They drove us all the way to the first checkpoint, not stopping once. When they dropped us off, the same officer from before looked at me with that same look as before and said they never used to kill, you know, he says they used to be scared. Then he and his buddy just drive off. Be me. Be 17 or so. Going fishing with my dad in a swampy/marshy area down the river. Up at dawn to paddle down in our old canoe. Dad brings a .22 Winchester lever action just in case. Get there around 8 a.m. or so. Water's only a foot or so deep in some places. Lots of reeds everywhere. At times it gets so dense and the river gets so narrow that you can touch the reeds from the middle of the river. Dad and I are floating in this shaded area that fish love with big willows on both sides of the river. I get a bite. Feels like a big one. After about 2 seconds of tension on the line, it goes limp. What? Reel in the line, expecting a broken line or a fish dead from a heart attack. Instead I get a lure/hook that split clean in half. What in fuck.eco? I show it to Dad, he thinks it might be a snapping turtle or something. I'm not so sure. Asked forward a couple of hours. We don't catch much of anything. This is weird because this is normally a primo fishing spot, you can practically scoop them out of the water. Nothing this time, other than that first bite. Dad decides it's time to go back. We grab our paddles, start back. Almost immediately hit something. Huh? I didn't know there was a rock there. Guess it's lower tide than normal. Push off of it, anon. I can't reach. Will do, Dad. Go to push off of it with my paddle. Paddle seems to sink in a bit. Almost like mud covered in grass, or that cornstarch and water stuff. Manage to get off of it. Glance behind us as we get underway. See a grassy/muddy looking hump sink into the water. HRM. Continue to see the hump out of the corner of my eye most of the way back. Mention it to my dad. He goes pale. Asks me to describe it to him. I do. He immediately paddles straight for shore and pulls the canoe up as well. Shoulders the .22 and starts scanning the water. I'm weirded out. Dad, what's going on? Anon. There are some things I'd rather not be in the water with. 5 minutes later. I think it's gone. Slide the canoe back in the water, will ya? Push one end into the water. Grab the end to keep it from floating away. Step one of my feet into it, about to throw fishing stuff back in. I hear this sound that's a cross between a crunch and a snapping, grinding noise. Look back. First 6 inches of the canoe is gone. Holy shit. My dad starts screaming. Dive back onto land, fuck the canoe. Dad fires wildly into the water where the bit of canoe used to be. I guess the thing was almost on the surface because a bit of blood floats up. Doesn't look like fish blood, looks almost green/blue. Canoe sinks. Well, anon. Looks like we're walking home. Son of a bitch. Pick up all our stuff and head back. 3/4 of the way there, we come across this inlet/stream thing that branches off from the main river. Looks pretty deep. Water itself is only about 4 feet wide, really wide banks. I try to step down onto the bank to jump across. My foot sinks about 2 feet in. God damn it. Manage to pull both my foot and shoe out. Looks like we're wading then. Find a piece of bank that isn't soft as fuck. Start wading across. Hump at 3 o'clock. I yell out to my dad, we both start to double time it. Dad starts firing at it. Keeps hitting it, but no visible effect. It just speeds up. I manage to get out, throw our shit on the ground, pull my dad up behind me. We scramble up off the bank and Dad keeps firing at the hump. Suddenly, it moves forward and up the bank. Dad runs out of ammo. It gets just a little bit out of the water. Looks like a hippo in a ghillie suit. Then it opens its mouth. Fucking row after row of sharp-ass teeth, like a shark. Longer legs, looks almost like croc legs. It roars/hisses/screeches at us and then sinks back into the water. We made it back home without incident, but we were both shitting our pants. We never went fishing there again, incidentally. I worked a prison in a remote area in southern Iraq miles from Qasr. At the time I was there, it detained 30k prisoners and an additional 3k that no one except people working there knew about. They'd put us in blacked out window commercial buses and drive us an hour away for days at a time to guard the facilities. We were never allowed to speak with anyone on the main prison fob and forbidden to tell anyone about it. We refer to it only as Jurassic Park, one of the black prisons run by contractor medical personnel. The facility itself was a facade of mud/brick buildings resembling a small village. The place was complete with villagers, us, dressed up in man dresses, and a small area for goats on the outskirts. From a distance it looked legit, but up close you could see the bulges from our combat gear underneath the clothing. All of us there were picked for our darker complexion and allowed to grow facial hair. You also had to be military police with TS and PRP or Yankee White clearance. I couldn't see Qasr from the facility, so I have no idea where we were, just that we were in the middle of nowhere. We had to park the gun trucks and buses away from the area and use netting to cover them. The trucks were manned by a PMC, so they looked like civilian vehicles beside being armored variations of normal vehicles. Usually a small fire team would be tasked with security and a turret. The rest of us had to put the clothing on and start a small patrol to relieve the other guards. In late 2007 we were woken up early and were called to go to the facility 3 days earlier than our normal rotation. We bitched, got ready and headed out to get in the buses. This time around we arrived to a lot full of newer up-armored Humvees, told to STFU and get in. There were already drivers in each truck and off we went. The drivers drove in a tight group, which is unusual for convoy ops. They also didn't talk to us the entire ride. It's pitch black out and all you can see is blackness, but this is the first time we were allowed to see where we were going because the Humvee windows weren't blacked out like the buses. I'm trying to orient myself but can't see much beside the little red lights of the vehicle in front of mine. The windows are thick armored glass, so it's impossible to see anything in the nighttime desert with no illumination beside the convoys. We drive for a little over an hour and you can see a faint glow in the distance. We start to get closer and it's the facility that's on fire. The lieutenant comes over our comms and relays that anyone not wearing American DCU pattern MOP 4 is to be eliminated via deadly force. None of us are wearing MOP gear. The driver stopped the vehicles and we're told to dismount and rally around a group of LMTVs that are waiting for us. They start calling out SSI numbers and handing out mopping gear that is already our sizes. My WTF is going off hard. NCOs come around and tell us to gear up. We start putting our MOP gear and are abruptly told to stop and strip back down to our regular uniforms and take out our military ID cards, driver license, and any other form of photo identification on our person or gear. Little teams of PMC, private military contractor E. Blackwater etc., start collecting and searching us. One guy would cut away our name tape, military branch tape and unit patches. Once they finished, another team of them would come by and try to find anything the first one missed. Lastly, our NCOs did the same thing to see if the first two missed anything. Officers start rallying up our NCOs for the operations order, tells them what the plan is, and the rest of us are told to rally back up around another set of LMTVs, armored supply trucks like a new Reduce and a half, and start unloading boxes filled with ammo, magazines, and newer NVGs than the ones we already had in our gear. These ones had a rail system that attached in behind our optics so we could wear a gas mask and still shoot and see in the dark. We're told to load as many magazines as possible and